There's certainly times in my solitude when I forget just how bad things can be for men, and in particular the specifics of the situation a lot of men find themselves in. And so recently I was talking to a very good friend of mine who is pretty red-pilled on most matters, but for better or worse has decided to continue to date and pursue relationships, which is perfectly fine. It's his life, his choice. He's going his own way. If that's the way he wants to go his own way, no skin off my back. And I also have to say that it's men like that I'm still pretty good friends with that are also red-pilled that give me continual insight and a reminder into what life used to be like for me and more broadly what it's still like today. And so the situation he found himself in was this utterly pointless fight argument with his girlfriend about something that made absolutely no sense whatsoever. You see, this particular girlfriend is extremely neurotic and obsessed and jealous, and she constantly sends him texts and asks him what he's doing and patrols him online to make sure that he's not cheating effectively. And there are all kinds of things that she weaves into that in statements to offer plausible deniability with regards to her own behavior. But he tells me, and I believe him, that overall she's probably the best find that he's made so far, which is to say most of the time she's quite reasonable. She has those moments where she's effectively unreachable. And I've gone into some depth talking to him about this. What he means by unreachable is basically that no matter what he says, no matter how reasonable he is, evidence he offers, rational, calm, nothing gets through. And he always tells me that he forgets to simply disengage, which is a lesson I had learned years ago in previous relationships. And this situation, my friend, reminds me of the bigger picture. Because I don't think men realize how bad the bigger picture is. And that is that, for all intents and purposes, when women are in their states, and I'm being generous with that term, not only can nothing get through to them, everything is justified. And we see this everywhere. We see this in violent crime. We see this in the things that they do to people. And the issue here is not just that this is effectively for the duration of the dispute or whatever, a crazy person. The issue is the lack of acknowledgement that this person is crazy. Because oftentimes we're in a situation where we are sanctioning what is effectively the equivalent of a paranoid schizophrenic. Somebody who is seeing things, having hallucinations, acting absolutely batty and insane. But what do? We say, that's fine, that's good. Not only do we countenance that, we support it, we encourage it. We say, that's okay because you're a woman. Imagine if someone were actually diagnosed with some mental illness, with schizophrenia, for example, acted in a certain way, and this behavior led to, at the very least, mental and emotional damage amongst people, and perhaps even worse. No one in his right mind would say, that's okay, he's schizophrenic. Sure, would we be compassionate? Absolutely. We would say, let's get him help, maybe get him on some medication, maybe get him some therapy, whatever. But no one would say, that's perfectly fine, we don't need to correct this. But it's really strange that when women are possessed of their emotional tantrums, I remember these things from back in the day when I used to bother with this sort of thing, well, we tend to give them a free pass. We give them a free pass about everything. And it starts really young, and it's a free pass we don't even give to children. What happens when a child, even a female child for that matter, throws a tantrum, an unjustified tantrum? Well, typically, if the parents are good parents, they'll reprimand the child and say, no, you can't do that, or it's not justified, and you need to learn how to deal with not getting certain things, or what have you. Do we do that with women? Usually not. We almost never do that with women. In fact, if I were some blue-pilled simp, I probably would have told my friend, oh, you should try to understand her. You should try to make her feel okay and accommodated and accept the fact that she's going through a rough time. That's what you should do. But obviously I'm not a blue pill simp, so I'm not going to do that. And I can also remember times in my life where I was trying to have a reasonable discussion, argument, however you want to put it, with ex-wives of mine, that also reminded me of a reality that I cannot reach this person. And eventually I learned to disengage and just walk away, which pissed them off. But unlike with my friend and his apparent claims that his girlfriend eventually comes to her senses, I never witnessed that myself. Realization that, as if possessed by a demon, the demon has fled, and now she can think reasonably and cogently and can have a conversation without any of this nonsense. And by second-hand accounts, this friend of mine, who's dated a fair number of women, claims this is the most rational, reasonable woman he's ever met. And I know all the stories from other guys and other friends of mine. This is the reality we live in. That episodes of insanity that can lead to great harm sometimes are not only excused, they're encouraged. The excessive emotional output of women is something that is routinely regarded as a good thing. The idea that they should try to sit down and collect themselves and assess the situation rationally and try to justify the things they're doing with good reasons as opposed to simply emoting. If you were the guy to tell them that, well, in a normal situation, you would be chastised for that. You would be accused of not showing understanding, of not being supportive, of not being helpful, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. In the worst case scenarios, we can see issues such as women getting much more diminished prison sentences, women getting away with domestic violence, etc., etc. All predicated on the idea that this is all harmless and that they can't control themselves. And yet, again, when I think about it, we hold children accountable for things that we deem to be uncivil and not proper within a social context, doing things that one would think later on they would not think to do because they're still learning. And for some bizarre reason, that doesn't happen with adult women. It's sort of a situation of insanity in you. Because if you choose to engage with women in relationships, God's preserve us, marriage, that's what you're going to have to deal with. You're going to have to deal with a theater of the absurd, a world of emotion that does not compute to you, a world of emotion that doesn't even map onto reality half the time. And you're supposed to be supportive of that. And if people outside your relationship catch wind of that, you'll be castigated, maybe even punished, and even inside. Because you better believe she's going to go to her girlfriends and complain about you. And they're all going to offer sympathy in their great emotional summit, where they all confide in each other and complain about their men. And so I don't often talk about this because there's so many reasons why I got out of that system. But this close friend of mine telling me this story, which, by the way, had not been the first time. There were several episodes, and I'm being generous in saying several, reminded me so potently that that's the world we live in, a world of absolute insanity with regards to one specific class of human being that you're just supposed to accept, encourage, and approve of. You see, I remember being younger, speaking to other guys about this, who were just terrified to speak the truth. I tell them stories, I tell them what happened, and you could see that flicker of awareness in their eyes. You knew they wanted to nod in agreement because they'd been through exactly the same thing. But, of course, they couldn't do that. And why not? Well, back then, you would never talk about this sort of thing, which is why I think it's such a blessing and a boon to the young men out there who can not only talk about this, but become aware of these sorts of things. And we just don't want to level with ourselves, either as men or as a society, that we actually hold children more accountable for improper, insane behavior than we do adult women. Think about that. Children. We hold them more accountable in many ways than adult women. And then you're supposed to engage in a relationship with that sort of thing. Been there, done that, got out, thank the gods. But, as I said at the beginning, other men are my portal to this reality. Friends of mine who relay these stories to me. And guess what? In the years since I renounced it all, nothing has changed. So really, it's on you. You want to deal with insanity? You want to deal with that bullshit? Then it's just insanity in you. You don't? You can just walk away. That's the thing that nobody ever told me before, because that was just too weird. Walking away from women. Who did such a thing? Well, I did, and I do. And I know a lot of you have done that too. Just doesn't make any sense. Why should I engage with somebody who, at least for certain moments of time, is functionally insane? It makes no sense whatsoever. And all the world is supporting her insanity. And I'm supposed to support her insanity too. No thank you. Anyways, gentlemen, a healthy reminder, I think, of just how absurd the world is. This world of insanity in you. And we can be thankful these days about the lines of communication that did not exist back in the day, I assure you. Where you would stand there in isolation thinking, am I the crazy one? When everyone knew that that wasn't the case, but they just didn't want to open up their mouth. Anyway, as always, may the gods watch over you. And if I'm still alive, I'll check you out later. Bye-bye. If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoy my content, please consider making a donation or becoming a patron. Thanks for watching.